When my husband told me our niece was carrying his baby, I threw him out into the pouring rain. 3 days later, I was meeting with a lawyer who revealed there were hundreds of thousands missing from our joint accounts. That's when I realized love wasn't just blind, it was broke and betrayed. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and comment where you're from. Because what happened next will twist your heart faster than a tornado in a trailer park. My name is Lydia Howard, and I used to believe in happily ever after. My husband Gerald and I had what I thought was the perfect marriage. 10 years of building a life together in our beautiful colonial home with a wraparound porch. The kind of place where you imagine grandchildren running around someday. Then Della came into our lives. My sweet niece, or so I thought. She was only 19 when her parents died in that awful car accident. Gerald suggested we take her in, give her a home, help her through college. She's family, he said with those sincere eyes I trusted completely. We need to be there for her. For 2 years, we were a family. I mentored her through her classes, helped her decorate her bedroom, taught her my grandmother's secret recipes. I loved that girl like she was my own daughter. The daughter Gerald, and I never had despite years of trying. I still remember that rainy Tuesday when everything fell apart. Gerald had left his jacket on the kitchen chair, something I'd reminded him not to do 1,000 times before. As I picked it up to hang it properly, a small piece of paper fluttered to the floor. I wouldn't have even noticed it except for the letterhead from Women's Health Associates. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it. Confirm pregnancy, it said. Just 2 words that shattered my entire existence. Because the appointment wasn't in my name. It was in Della's. Script part separator equals. I stared at that paper for what felt like hours, but must have only been minutes. My brain refused to process what my eyes were seeing. Della, Prgmnt? Why would Gerald have her doctor's note? There had to be an explanation. There had to be. I heard the front door open, followed by laughter, their laughter. I stood frozen in the kitchen, that damning piece of paper clutched in my hand. Gerald walked in first, his smile fading when he saw my face. Lydia? What's wrong? Della appeared behind him, her eyes widening when she saw what I was holding. Would either of you like to explain this? My voice was surprisingly steady, considering my insides were being shredded to pieces. The look they exchanged said everything I needed to know. Aunt Lydia, Della started, but Gerald cut her off. Let me handle this. He took a step toward me. It's not what you think. Really? I laughed, a bitter sound I'd never heard come from my mouth before. Because I think my husband got my niece pregnant. Please tell me how I'm misinterpreting that. It just happened, Gerald said, his voice dropping to that soothing tone he used when he wanted to calm me down. We didn't mean for it to. It just happened? I screamed, finally losing control. People trip and fall, Gerald. They don't accidentally sleep with their wife's niece for months and get her pregnant. Della was crying now, those big crocodile tears she'd perfected. We fell in love, Aunt Lydia. We didn't want to hurt you. Didn't want to hurt me? I was shaking so hard I had to grip the counter. You've been living under my roof, eating my food, accepting my love and support while sleeping with my husband behind my back. What exactly would you call that? Gerald reached for me. Lydia, please. Don't touch me. I backed away. Pack your things and get out. Both of you. Now. Where are we supposed to go? Della whimpered. That's not my problem anymore, I said coldly. You're adults. Figure it out. This is my house too, Gerald argued. You can't just throw me out. Watch me. I grabbed my phone. Leave now, or I call everyone we know and tell them exactly what you've done. Script part separator equals. Gerald's face darkened. The charming mask slipped, revealing something ugly beneath. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I held his gaze, refusing to blink. How do you think your boss will react? Your church friends? Your mother? Lydia, Della pleaded, we can talk about this. We're done talking. I grabbed Gerald's suitcase from the hall closet and threw it at his feet. Pack and get out. You have 30 minutes. I stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, as they scrambled around the house collecting their belongings. The rain had turned into a full-on storm, thunder cracking overhead like the universe was as angry as I was. "You'll regret this," Gerald muttered as he lugged his suitcase to the door. "You need me more than you know. What I need is for you to disappear." I opened the front door. The wind howled, rain lashing sideways across the porch. "Goodbye, Gerald." Della paused at the threshold, her hand protectively covering her still flat stomach. "Aunt Lydia."
"Don't call me that."
"Not ever again." I slammed the door in their faces. The moment they were gone, my legs gave out. I slid down the wall to the floor, violent sobs tearing through my body. 10 years of marriage. 2 years of caring for Della. All of it poisoned. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually, the tears stopped. The numbness settled in. I dragged myself to the master bathroom and stared at my reflection. Puffy eyes, mascara streaked down my cheeks, hair a wild mess. I barely recognized myself. "Get it together, Lydia," I whispered to my reflection. "This is not how your story ends." That night, I couldn't sleep in our bed. I kept imagining them together in it while I was at work. Had it been going on for months?
Years?
I curled up on the living room sofa instead, clutching my phone, fighting the urge to call Gerald and beg him to explain, to tell me it was all a mistake. Around 3 a.m., the text started. "Gerald, we need to talk about finances." "Gerald, I need to come get more of my things." "Gerald, you're being irrational. Let's discuss this like adults." I blocked his number. Script part separator ===. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity that surprised me. The initial shock had hardened into something else, determination. I showered, put on my best business suit, and made 3 important calls. To my bank, to a locksmith, and to my friend Caroline, who happened to be a divorce attorney. "Meet me at Riverside Cafe in an hour," Caroline said. "And Lydia? Bring any financial documents you can find." While waiting for the locksmith, I went through Gerald's home office. In our 10 years together, I'd rarely spent time in this room. Gerald handled our finances. It had seemed like such a blessing to have a husband who took care of all that boring stuff, as he called it.
What a fool I'd been.
I found our most recent bank statements and nearly collapsed when I saw the balances. Our joint checking account, which should have had close to $30,000, showed just over $3,000. Our savings account was worse. The $150,000 we'd been putting aside for retirement had dwindled to $18,542. My hands shook as I dug deeper. Credit card statements showed large cash advances, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, and most damning of all, a lease agreement for an apartment downtown, dated 6 months ago. They had been planning this. The locksmith arrived just as I was stuffing documents into my briefcase. "Change every lock in the house," I instructed him, "and install a security system while you're at it." An hour later, I sat across from Caroline in the quiet corner of the cafe, watching her face darken as she flipped through the papers. "Lydia," she said finally, "he's been siphoning money for months. This is financial fraud. What do I do?" I asked, my coffee untouched. "First, we freeze all joint accounts immediately. Then we file for divorce, citing adultery and financial misconduct." She leaned forward. "And Lydia? We go for everything. The house, the investments he thinks you don't know about, his pension. Everything.
Can we win?"
Caroline's smile was razor sharp. "With what he's done. Honey, he'll be lucky if he doesn't end up in jail." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number.
"Della, please don't do this. We need to talk.
For the baby's sake." I showed Caroline the message.
"Block her too," she advised.
"From now on, all communication goes through me." For the first time since finding that note, I felt something like power returning. What's our next move? We're filing emergency orders today. But first, Caroline closed her folder. "Tell me everything you know about this niece of yours." Script part separator ===. As Caroline drove me to the courthouse to file the emergency orders, I told her everything about Della. She's actually my husband's sister's daughter. Her mom, Vanessa, died with her husband in a car crash 2 years ago. Gerald insisted we take her in. Said it was our duty, since she had no one else. And you never suspected anything between them? Caroline asked, expertly navigating through traffic. Never. I trusted them completely. My voice cracked. I was busy with my job at the hospital. Long shifts, night rotations. I thought it was sweet how Gerald was helping her with college applications, driving her to interviews. Caroline's eyebrows shot up. When did Della turn 21? 4 months ago.
Why?
Because if their relationship started before that, while she was living under your roof as your dependent, things get even more complicated legally. I felt sick. You think he was grooming her? I think we need to know exactly when this started. After filing the emergency orders to freeze our assets, Caroline suggested I stay at a hotel for a few days. Gerald's going to be furious when he discovers what we've done. Better to be somewhere he can't find you. That night in my sterile hotel room, I couldn't sleep. My phone kept lighting up with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Gerald trying to reach me from different phones. I turned it off completely. The next morning, Caroline called with news. The judge granted our emergency petition. All accounts are frozen, and we have a hearing date next week. But Lydia, there's something else. The bank flagged suspicious transfers going back 18 months. Large sums to an offshore account. 18 months? I whispered. That's before Della even turned 20. There's more. I had my investigator do some digging. Gerald signed a lease on that apartment 6 months ago, but he's been paying utilities there for over a year. The realization hit me like a truck. They've been planning this for over a year. The pregnancy, it wasn't an accident. They wanted me to find out. It gets worse, Caroline said gravely. My guy found something in property records. Gerald bought a house last month, in both his and Della's names. With our money, I said numbly. Yes. And Lydia? The closing date is tomorrow. Script part separator ===. I hung up with Caroline and stared out the hotel window, watching the rain that hadn't stopped since this nightmare began. They bought a house together. All those times Gerald said he was working late, all those weekends Della spent studying at the library. They were building their future while dismantling mine. My phone rang again. Caroline. Lydia, I need you to come to my office right now. There's something you need to see. 30 minutes later, I sat across from Caroline as she pushed a folder toward me. My investigator found these. Prepare yourself. Inside were photos.
Dozens of them.
Gerald and Della together at restaurants, walking on the beach, kissing in a car. The timestamps showed dates going back nearly 2 years, almost from the moment Della moved in with us. But it was the last photo that broke me. Gerald and Della, standing in front of a sold sign, his hand resting possessively on her stomach. The perfect little family, I said bitterly. Built with my money.
Exactly.
Caroline tapped her pen against her desk. And that's our leverage. What do you mean? The house they bought. I've had the sale frozen pending investigation of fraud. The judge agreed that using funds potentially stolen from you constitutes grounds for delaying the closing. My phone buzzed with a text. I'd turned it back on at Caroline's request in case we needed evidence of harassment. It was Gerald. You've gone too far. You have no idea what you're messing with. Back off now or you'll regret it. I showed Caroline the message. Perfect, she smiled. That's a threat.
Save it.
The next message came from Della. Aunt Lydia, please. We never meant for this to happen. Gerald says you're trying to leave us homeless. Think about the baby. I felt rage bubble up. How dare she play the victim? Caroline's office phone rang. She answered, listened for a moment, then her eyes widened. They're here, she mouthed, covering the receiver. In my lobby. Script part separator ===. I stood up so quickly my chair fell backward. What do you want me to do? Caroline hung up the phone. Let's confront them. Show them we're not afraid. Are you sure?
My heart hammered in my chest.
Absolutely. Let them see what they're up against. She pressed her intercom. Send them in, Martha. The door opened, and there they were. Gerald in his expensive suit, bought with my money, and Della behind him, wearing a loose-fitting dress that barely concealed her small baby bump. Seeing them together, knowing what they'd done, made my blood boil. Well, if it isn't the happy couple, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Lydia, this has gone far enough. Gerald's face was flushed with anger. You're being vindictive. Vindictive? I laughed. You stole my money, betrayed my trust, and impregnated my niece. What exactly did you expect? A blessing? We didn't mean to hurt you, Della whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Save the waterworks, Caroline snapped. They don't work in court. Gerald's eyes narrowed at Caroline. This is a family matter. You shouldn't be involved. Actually, I replied, this is now a criminal matter. Fraud, theft, possibly statutory rape, depending on when exactly you started sleeping with her. Della gasped. It wasn't like that. No? Then explain these. Caroline pushed the photos across her desk. Gerald's face went pale as he flipped through them. Where did you get these? That's not your concern, Caroline said coolly. What should concern you is that I'm sending copies to the district attorney this afternoon. You can't do that, Della cried. Watch us. I stepped closer to them. You took everything from me. Did you really think I wouldn't fight back? Script part separator equals. Gerald's jaw clenched. You have no idea what you're up against, Lydia. Is that a threat? Caroline asked, her pen poised over her legal pad. It's a reality check, Gerald said. We're having a baby. A child who deserves a stable home. Do you really want to be the bitter ex-wife who ruins an innocent child's life? I felt my resolve waver. For just a second. A baby. An innocent caught in the middle of this ugliness. Don't you dare use that child to manipulate me, I said, my voice shaking with fury. You created this situation. You and Della. We're in love, Della insisted, moving closer to Gerald. We didn't plan for it to happen, but it did. Why can't you just let us be happy? Because you built your happiness on the ruins of my life. I slammed my hand on the desk. You lived in my home, ate my food, accepted my love while sleeping with my husband behind my back. Caroline placed a warning hand on my arm, then addressed Gerald directly. Let me make our position clear. My client is filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial fraud. We're pursuing criminal charges for the theft of approximately $200,000. The house you attempted to purchase has been flagged as bought with stolen funds. You can't prove that, Gerald challenged, but I could see the fear beneath his bravado. Actually, we can, Caroline replied smoothly. The money trail is quite clear. And should you choose to contest this, we'll be forced to make everything public. Every sordid detail. Della paled. You wouldn't. Caroline smiled thinly. Try us. Script part separator equals. Gerald adjusted his tie, a nervous habit I'd seen countless times during our marriage. He glanced at Della, then back at Caroline. What do you want? He asked finally. Caroline slid a document across the desk. Everything outlined here. Full disclosure of all accounts. Return of all stolen funds. The house stays with Lydia. Your retirement accounts are forfeit. This is ridiculous. Gerald exploded. You can't take everything. We can and we will, Caroline replied calmly. Unless you'd prefer jail time? Della burst into tears. Please, Aunt Lydia. Think about the baby. Something in me snapped. Don't you dare use that child as a shield. You didn't think about consequences when you were sneaking around with my husband. Gerald leaned forward, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Lydia. I have information that could destroy you. Caroline laughed. Save your threats for someone who scares easily. They left in a fury, slamming the door behind them. I collapsed into a chair, exhausted. What did he mean about having information that could destroy me? Caroline shrugged. Empty threats. Typical for someone cornered. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Gerald knew something I didn't. That night, my hotel room felt even lonelier. I jumped at every sound, imagining Gerald lurking in shadows. Around midnight, my phone rang, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Lydia? The voice was familiar, but not Gerald's or Della's. Who is this? I demanded. It's Rob, Gerald's brother. We need to talk. My pulse quickened. Rob and I had always gotten along, but we weren't close. About what? Not over the phone. Meet me tomorrow. It's about Gerald and Della. There's something you need to know. Script part separator ===. I met Rob at a coffee shop across town the next morning, constantly checking over my shoulder to make sure Gerald wasn't following me. Rob looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes. Thanks for coming, he said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. I found these in Gerald's old storage unit. He doesn't know I have a key. Inside were documents that made my blood run cold. Bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts. Photos of Gerald with women who weren't me, or Della. And most disturbing of all, a birth certificate for a baby girl born 3 years ago, listing Gerald as the father. He has another child? My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Rob nodded grimly. With his secretary. He's been supporting them in secret. All this time. I whispered, my world tilting yet again.
There's more, Rob said.
Della isn't who you think she is. What do you mean? She's not Vanessa's daughter. She's not even related to us. I stared at him, uncomprehending. That's impossible. I met her at Vanessa's funeral.
Did you?
Or did Gerald introduce you to her there? My mind raced back. Gerald had indeed brought Della to me at the service, introducing her as Vanessa's daughter who'd been away at boarding school. I'd never questioned it because I'd been so consumed with grief over Vanessa's death.
Who was she then?
Rob pushed another document toward me. According to this, her real name is Delilah Parker. She was Gerald's student 3 years ago. Student? Gerald's never been a teacher. No, Rob agreed. But he guest lectured at community colleges. That's where they met. She was 17, Lydia. 17. Script part separator ===. The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. 17. Gerald had been involved with a 17-year-old girl. And then he'd brought her into our home under false pretenses. She was underage, I whispered, feeling sick. And he brought her into our house pretending she was family. Rob nodded grimly. I only found out recently. I've been trying to gather evidence before coming to you.
Why?
I asked. Why would you help me against your own brother? Rob's face darkened. Because Gerald destroyed my marriage too. He slept with my wife 3 years ago. That's why Amanda left me. The pieces were falling into place. Gerald's frequent visits to Rob's house when Amanda was home alone, his insistence that I not accompany him because Rob was dealing with personal issues. He's a predator, I said, my voice shaking with rage. Yes, Rob agreed. And Della, or Delilah, is his accomplice. They've been running this con for years. Find vulnerable women, gain their trust, then drain them financially. But why get pregnant? Why buy a house together? Legitimacy, Rob explained. A baby gives them sympathy in court. The house establishes them as a real couple with roots in the community. I clutched the documents. I need to get these to my lawyer. There's one more thing, Rob said, lowering his voice. Gerald's not broke. He has another account, one even your lawyer hasn't found. There's over $500,000 in it. My jaw dropped. How do you know this? Because I helped him set it up years ago, before I knew what kind of man he really was. Rob handed me a slip of paper. These are the account details. Take him for everything, Lydia. He deserves it. I left the coffee shop with my head spinning. Instead of going back to the hotel, I went straight to Caroline's office. Her eyes widened as I spread the documents across her desk. Holy shit, she whispered, a rare break in her professional demeanor. This changes everything. How quickly can we get a court date? I asked. Script part separator ===. For this? Caroline picked up her phone. We're going to the judge today. This is no longer just a divorce case. This is criminal. 2 hours later, we were standing in Judge Moretti's chambers. Her stern face grew increasingly troubled as Caroline presented the evidence. Ms. Howard, the judge said finally, addressing me directly. I'm granting your emergency petition immediately. All assets belonging to Gerald Howard are frozen pending investigation. Furthermore, I'm issuing a restraining order against both Mr. Howard and this Delilah Parker. Thank you, Your Honor, I said, relief washing over me. Don't thank me yet. The judge's eyes were kind but serious. This is just the beginning of what will likely be a very difficult process. As we left the courthouse, my phone exploded with messages. Gerald had discovered what we'd done. You bitch. You've ruined everything. And then from Della, or Delilah, we know you met with Rob. Big mistake. I showed Caroline the messages. Forward those to me and delete them from your phone. Then get somewhere safe. They're cornered animals now. That makes them dangerous. I checked into a different hotel under Caroline's name. That night, I barely slept, jumping at every sound in the hallway. Around 3 a.m., my new prepaid phone rang. Caroline. Lydia, there's been a fire at your house.
What? You said but uplights.
How bad? It's gone. The fire department is saying arson.
I'm so sorry.
I felt strangely calm. Did they catch who did it? Not yet, but the police want to speak with you in the morning. And Lydia? They found something in the ruins. A body. My blood turned to ice. Who? Caroline's voice was grim. They don't know yet. But it's not Gerald or Delilah. They've already been brought in for questioning. Script part separator ===. I rushed to the police station at dawn. Detective Martinez led me to a small conference room where 2 officers waited. Mrs. Howard, I'm sorry about your home, Martinez said. Can you think of anyone who might have been inside? My mind raced.
No.
I've been staying at a hotel. No one should have been there. Martinez slid a photo across the table. Do you recognize this watch? I gasped. It was Rob's distinctive Rolex, the one with the cracked face he refused to repair because it happened when his son was born. That's Rob's, my brother-in-law's. Where did you find it? The detective's expression softened. Near the body, Mrs. Howard.
I'm sorry.
The room spun. Rob was dead? Because he helped me? Gerald and Delilah Parker are in custody, Martinez continued. But they're claiming they were at dinner when the fire started. They're lying, I said, my voice shaking. Rob gave me evidence against them yesterday. They knew we'd met. We need that evidence. Caroline arrived minutes later with copies of everything. The detective's eyes widened as they reviewed the documents. This is big, Martinez muttered. Identity fraud, statutory rape, financial crimes. And now murder, I added grimly. Caroline squeezed my hand. Lydia, there's something else you should know. The offshore account Rob told you about? It's emptied. Someone transferred everything out this morning. They're planning to run, I realized. We weren't wrong. By afternoon, Gerald and Delilah had made bail and vanished. They can't have gone far, Caroline assured me. Every airport, bus station, and border crossing has their photos. 3 agonizing days passed. I moved in with Caroline, too afraid to stay alone. On the 4th morning, she burst into the guest room. They found them, trying to cross into Canada with fake passports. I collapsed in relief. Thank God. That's not all, Caroline said, her eyes gleaming. When they arrested them, Delilah turned on Gerald. Started screaming that it was all his idea. The fire, Rob's murder, everything. She's willing to testify against him for a reduced sentence. Will it work? With what she knows? Absolutely. Gerald's looking at life in prison. The trial was scheduled for 3 months later. I spent that time rebuilding my life from ashes, literally and figuratively. The insurance money from the house would eventually come through, but until then, I moved into a small apartment and focused on healing. The day of the trial arrived with a media circus. Apparently, the story of a respected businessman who seduced a teenage student, faked her identity, married and defrauded multiple women, and finally committed murder was exactly the kind of sensational case reporters lived for. I sat in the front row of the courtroom, dressed in a simple black suit. Caroline beside me, squeezing my hand as Gerald was led in wearing handcuffs. He looked older, thinner, his arrogance replaced by desperation. When Delilah took the stand, she barely resembled the sweet niece I'd taken in. Her face was hard, calculating as she methodically detailed their years-long con. How Gerald had targeted me specifically for my inheritance and earning potential. How they planned to drain me dry, then stage my suicide once they'd secured the house in their names. He said no one would question it, Delilah testified, avoiding my gaze. Abandoned wife, devastated by betrayal.
It happens all the time. The courtroom gasped.
I remained stone-faced, refusing to give Gerald the satisfaction of seeing me break. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder, I felt nothing but emptiness. Gerald was sentenced to life without parole. Delilah got 15 years in exchange for her testimony. As they led Gerald away, he looked back at me one last time. "I did love you once," he called out. I stood up, straightening my shoulders. "No, Gerald. You loved what I could give you. There's a difference." Outside the courthouse, reporters thrust microphones in my face, asking how it felt to see justice served. "Justice doesn't bring back the dead," I said quietly. "It doesn't restore trust or heal betrayal. But it's a start." 6 months later, I stood on the beach at sunset, Rob's ashes in a small urn. His son, my godson, stood beside me as we scattered them over the waves. "Does it ever stop hurting?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "But you learn to carry it differently." That night, I sat on my new porch swing, watching the stars appear one by one. My phone chimed with a text from Caroline. "Delilah requesting to see you. Says she has important information. Your call." I stared at the message for a long time before typing my reply. "Tomorrow." It's time I heard the whole truth. Because some stories don't end with the verdict. And I was finally ready for whatever came next.